Okay, I'm going to do a couple problems with you from today's lesson. Let's go ahead and look at number 2 again from the notes from today. I'll do this pretty quickly because we did it in class, but I need to find the vertex, and it's -5, 4, so I'll put that in place. And then my slope is a -1, meaning that it opens down, and I go down 1 to the right and 1 to the left, 1 to the right, carrying on like this. And then I'd also obviously go to the left here as well, down 1 to the left. So that is what the graph looks like. And we're going to write this as 2 separate lines. So we know we have this first line here on the left that has a positive slope, and specifically a +1 slope. And then the one on the right has a negative slope, and I'm going to use that information in just a second. The other thing I need to know is I need to know the y-intercept. And on this particular one, I can read this as a -1, and if I were to go up and over, 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 I would land on 9 up here because this is 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'd land on 9. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to write my equations out. So let's do the graph on the left first. We know the slope is a +1, and we know that b is going to be 9. So all I have to do is say y is equal to 1x plus 9. Of course, I don't really need the 1, do I? And then from there, I just need to write my domain. Well, the domain changes at the x from the vertex at this -5. So I have a positive slope until I get to this -5, and then I have a negative slope. So the domain for this one is going to be everything less than or equal to -5, or I could say negative infinity up to -5 inclusive. And we talked about in class that I could include the -5 here, or when I do the other domain. I could do it either place. Okay, so the other line has a negative slope of 1, -1, and then it crosses the y-axis at -1. So it's just going to be y is equal to -1x minus 1. And here x is less than -5. Because remember we included the -5 here, you don't include it both places, that's from yesterday's lesson, and then that would be -5 to infinity not included. So you can write this either way. So that's the first part of the lesson. The second part of the lesson is, given the following piecewise functions, rewrite them as an absolute value. So it's this bottom part of the lesson here, okay? So there's a couple of steps to this. First of all, you want to recognize that you have the x from the vertex. And it will be based on your domain. So I know the x from the vertex is a 1 here, and I'm going to plug that in to either equation. Because remember, I have 2 lines going on here. So I'm just going to say x plus 2, and I'm going to say 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. So I know 1, 3 is my vertex. And that's really important. So that's step 1. So I can go ahead and write out the fact that my function is going to be x minus 1, like this, and then plus 3, like that. And I already know my slope is either 1 or -1. I just have to decide if it opens up or down. So that is step 2. So step 2 is to do a really rough sketch of your function, your absolute value function. So I know that the left-hand side, because x is less than 1, this is my left-hand side. This is my right-hand side because it's talking about x greater than 1. So the left side has a positive slope, the right side has a negative slope. So it's going to look something like this. Positive and then negative. So positive and then negative. So I know this is going to have a -1 for the slope. And that's going to be the equation. So basically it boils down to 2 steps. Okay? Now let's do a couple on the back that maybe get a little bit harder. I said I'd do number 8 with you because it doesn't easily graph to find the y-intercept. So graphing the function itself is not bad, but to split it into 2 lines is a little bit harder. So this is going to have a translation point of -5, 3. So -5, 3. And it's going to open down with a slope of negative 1/3. So let's just go and put that in place. So I'm going to go down 1 to the right 3, down 1 to the right 3. Now this line does cross the y-axis obviously, but it's not a precise point. So I'm going to have to do a little extra work on this one. Here I go down 1 to the left 3, and I can barely see another point on the line. So that's how that would graph. Now, we see that the domain itself is going to change at this negative 5. So this is going to be my positive half, and this will be my negative half. And I need to find a point on the line. Well, I have one. I have a point, negative 5, 3. And I know my slope is 1/3. Here it's a positive 1/3, here it's a negative 1/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can find the y-intercept. So I'm going to use y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. And all I need is the slope of the line, and I need a point on the line. I need two things. And I have two things for both of these lines that I'm going to write. Because remember, I need to write this equation and this equation. So let's do the left half first. My slope is a positive 1/3. And the point that I'm going to use is going to be the vertex, which is negative 5, 3. So all I have to do is use this y minus y sub 1. So y minus 3 is equal to my slope of 1/3, and then x minus a negative 5 is x plus 5. Okay, I can go ahead and add the 3 over. So when I add 3, this is gone. And just depending on how you've been asked to write it, this is actually the equation of the line right there. Okay, we're doing a little bit more with it where I distribute. So I get 1/3 x plus 5/3 plus 3. But I'm not going to write 3, I'm going to write 9/3 so I can combine, so I have a common denominator. So my equation is going to be 1/3 x plus 14/3. So that is one of my two lines that I need. So let me go ahead and write this information in. 1/3 x plus 14/3, and that is where x is less than or equal to a negative 5. And here, of course, it'll just be greater than negative 5. So I just need to know the other equation. Well, the other equation has a negative 1/3 slope and passes through the exact same point. So it's going to follow a very similar process. Okay, so let's just go in and I'll write that down for you. So again, it's y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. And I know my slope for this part of the function is negative, so negative 1/3. And I know my point that it passes is still the vertex. It always goes through the vertex. Both lines go through the vertex right there. So it's going to be y minus this 3 is equal to negative 1/3, and then I have x plus 5. Now, if you want to draw some comparisons here, at this point it looks exactly the same. I can even add the 3 over, and I get y is equal to negative 1/3 x plus 5 plus 3. So that's exactly what I had right here, except for the slope. Okay, so it's almost like doing the same thing twice. I'm going to distribute, and when I do that, I get a negative 1/3 x minus 5/3. And then it's still the plus 3 or 9/3. So then I get a negative 1/3 x, and then 9 minus 5 is going to be 4/3. So that is my equation. So negative 1/3 x plus 4/3. So that was a little bit harder, so I wanted to go over that. I do want to show you one other way that you guys might want to do it, and I'm just going to do the same equation here. Do you remember back in 9th grade when you did y is equal to mx plus b? And if we know the slope is a negative 1/3, and we actually do have a point, and that means I have an x and a y value that I can use, and that is negative 5, 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the slope, plug in the x and the y, and I'm going to solve for b. So this is just another way to do it if you like this way better. So my y is this y of 3. My slope is negative 1/3. My x is a negative 5 plus b, which I don't know. Okay, some of you may like this a lot better. So this is going to give me a positive 5/3, and then I have a 3 here, plus b. So to solve for b, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just subtract 5/3 from both sides. So subtract 5/3. And that's going to cancel all this out. So b will equal to 3 minus 5/3. Now 3, I don't want to write it like that. I'll do 9/3 minus 5/3. And that gives me my b, which we know to be 4/3. So then I go back and I get my b from down here. Sorry, I lost some of you there. I get my b from there, and then I go back and I get my slope that I started with up here. And I just put it back together, which would be y is equal to negative 1/3 x plus 4/3. So I get the same equation this way. So that is how you can approach writing the linear equations for your two pieces of your absolute value function if it's a little bit harder to do. And that should help you out. Finish your worksheet and we'll touch base tomorrow.